You ever have that one person at school who wasn't exactly a bully, but still made your life just a little bit worse every single day? Well, for me, that person was a girl who thought she was untouchable. She mocked me, ignored me, and acted like I was invisible. Until one day, she needed something from me. And that's when I gave her a taste of karma she never saw coming. Speaking head in silhouette hash. If you've ever dreamed of getting quiet, satisfying revenge on someone who made your life miserable, you're going to love this story. So hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and get ready for one of the pettiest, most perfect acts of middle school revenge ever told. Clock hash. Middle school was rough. You know that age where everyone's just trying to figure out who they are. But instead of kindness, most kids use sarcasm and cruelty to cover their own insecurities. Yeah, that was the world I lived in. I wasn't popular. I wasn't athletic. I was just there, quiet, awkward, and invisible unless someone needed a target for a cheap laugh. And that's where she came in. Let's call her Rachel. Rachel wasn't a full-blown bully. No, she was worse. She was the kind of person who acted nice when teachers were around but rolled her eyes the second they turned away. She'd make little comments, subtle jabs, small humiliations, just enough to sting, but never enough to get in trouble. If I got an answer wrong in class, she'd whisper, "Of course you did." If we got paired for group work, she'd sigh dramatically and say, "Fine, I'll do it." I never talked back, because back then, I thought staying quiet made me stronger. It didn't. It just made me invisible. By the end of middle school, our class took one of those fun end-of-year field trips to a roller skating rink. You know, the kind with flashing lights, pop music, and that weird smell of rental skates and pizza grease. It was supposed to be a day to celebrate surviving another year. But even then, Rachel found ways to get under my skin. She didn't have to say much. Just her presence, that smack, those whispered jokes of her friends every time I walked by. It was like she enjoyed reminding me where I stood in the social food chain. But fate, or maybe karma, was about to hand me a little opportunity. Around the rink, there were rows of old-school quarter machines. You know, the ones with bright-colored bouncy balls inside transparent domes, spinning around like little treasures just out of reach. Kids lined up, popping quarters in, laughing as the tiny plastic capsules clinked out one by one. Most people got one or two. But some kids, the ones with more allowance money, went all out. They started collecting them like trophies. Before long, bouncy balls were flying everywhere, bouncing off walls, rolling under tables, disappearing into the dark corners of the rink. It became a full-blown game. People were trading them, showing off the rare sparkly ones, comparing colors like Pokemon cards. And somehow, I ended up with a small fortune of them. A few friends gave me extras. I won a couple from silly challenges. And by the time the trip was over, I had an entire Ziploc bag full of bouncy balls. It felt like a treasure chest. Simple, silly joy, but it was mine. The bus ride back to school was long, loud, and full of that post-field trip chaos. Kids swapping snacks, laughing, yelling, throwing paper balls across the aisle. When we finally got back, I slung my backpack over one shoulder, grabbed my bag of bouncy balls, and started walking toward the classrooms. And that's when I heard her voice. "Hey, can I have some of those?" I turned around. It was Rachel, the same girl who had spent the last 2 years making me feel like I didn't matter. Now, she wanted something from me. Her tone wasn't friendly. It wasn't even polite. It was entitled, like she assumed I'd just hand them over because she asked. Scene 5. The flashback of pain. It's funny how fast your brain can replay years of small humiliations in a single heartbeat. Every eye roll, every sarcastic comment, every time she'd laugh with her friends while I sat alone at lunch. And now, she wanted my bouncy balls, not because she cared, not because she liked me, but because she thought she could. I stared at her for a second, and I could see the faintest trace of impatience cross her face. Like even in that moment, she was annoyed I hadn't obeyed instantly. And that's when something inside me, something small but powerful, snapped into place. I smiled. Not big, not sarcastic, just calm. And I said, No. That's it. Just one word. But oh, it was delicious. The look on her face, that flicker of disbelief, confusion, and insult, was pure gold. She actually blinked like she didn't understand the concept of being denied. Seriously, she said, trying to laugh it off. You have, like, 100. I shrugged. Yeah, and they're all mine. Her jaw tightened. She scoffed and muttered something like, whatever, before storming off. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel like the quiet kid. I felt powerful, because that wasn't just about bouncy balls. That was about every moment she'd made me feel invisible. And this time, she couldn't take what was mine. She probably forgot about that moment within a week. But me? I'll never forget it. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it was mine, my little spark of justice in a world that had mostly ignored me. It's funny how something so small can stay with you for years. That memory of standing up for myself, even in such a tiny way, became the foundation for something bigger later in life. Because once you realize you can say no to someone who treats you badly, you start saying no to a lot of things. No to being underestimated. No to being walked over. No to staying quiet when your boundaries are crossed. And sometimes, that's where real strength starts. She never apologized, never acknowledged what she did, but she didn't have to. That one no, that simple act of denying her what she wanted, was louder than any confrontation could have been. Because it wasn't just about the bouncy balls. It was about reclaiming dignity. And while she walked away fuming, I walked away free. You don't always need big, dramatic revenge to feel justice. Sometimes it's just about finally choosing yourself. It's about realizing you don't owe kindness to people who only ever gave you cruelty. And that is the sweetest revenge of all. Clap aboard. If this story made you smile, hit that like button and let me know in the comments. What's the smallest act of revenge you've ever done that still makes you proud? And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this, where karma always finds its way, one small victory at a time.